Hi, everybody. I'm here today with BitBoy, Brit, and Alex from Crypto Kings. And this is a roundtable. We're going to talk about a lot of the most interesting topics in crypto, like Bakkt, like privacy coins getting delisted, like the Libra ban, and more. So I'll leave timestamps down below in the description for your viewing pleasure, and also links to all of our channels down in the description. Feel free to check out everybody and subscribe to catch some of their content as well. So without further ado, let's jump into the very first topic, which is Bakkt. And Britt, if you can start us off.
All right, guys. So, Bakkt officially last night and today came out with their futures contracts, their derivative contracts. But, everybody is talking about the volume. I really didn't expect too much volume, but the volume was maybe 2 Bitcoin. Extremely down. But with these institutional investors, I didn't expect any of them to jump in currently. We recently had Donald Trump talk really bad about Bitcoin cryptocurrency. So, I wouldn't expect any big guys to throw in any large money. But to have everyone have the opportunity to get in on this, because I think the contract was at 3,900 to get in. You had to put 3,900 worth of Bitcoin to make one contract. So it actually gives slightly some retail investors opportunities, but a lot of people don't have $3,900 to get in. So what do you guys think about that overall with just the volume?
Well, it's 71 now. It's up to 71. Okay. Yeah, it's up to 71 contracts. So.
Okay.
What can I
something
say?
Interesting.
Go ahead.
So someone was pointing out that a lot of these ticker symbols and aren't connected with the institutional investors trading software and platform yet. So that's why they need some time to let it all integrate before they can get in. But in contrast, I read that CME had millions in their first week, and now they've since almost doubled their overall volume. And so that's another kind of contrast to Bakkt, and which is kind of like Van Eck. Van Eck didn't have anyone really buy their fake ETF.
Had no
either.
one, absolutely no one. Yeah, that's why they pulled it, I think.
Well, they pulled their application for a real one, right? But they still have this
exactly.
fake one that they launched.
Right. Well, I think that one thing to keep in mind is that last night at 8 p.m. Eastern, which would have been midnight Grand Meridian time, was when it launched. So, obviously your institutional investors, they're not really working on Sundays. That's part of the advantage of being, we're working in the stock world. So today, I will say this. I will say everybody was freaking out overnight at the lack of contracts. And, the fact is overnight, the contracts were really bad. When I woke up I think it was at 14. But since 9 o'clock this morning, when all the people were waking up, now it's at 71 contracts. So it has gone up a significant amount. How much will that go up over this week? I don't know. But, I'm not 100% sure if those contracts are 1-to-1 Bitcoin. So is that 71? Is each contract 1 Bitcoin? So that's 71.
No, it's about a third of a Bitcoin. They're worth about 3,500 each, right?
Okay. So what's 71 times 35?
Not a ton.
200,000 something dollars. So not close to the millions that were launched with the CME, but the CME ones also got launched at the height of the bull market. So quite a difference. Volume on everything is down. So, I don't know. Well, really, I think the rest of this week is going to, be the tail of the tape. We're going to have to see if these people are ready to jump in or just get their feet wet and jump out.
See, I suspect when we see the actual $100,000 plus orders at a time, that's when you're going to see these investors and these family funds and these individuals buying in. I still have a really hard time understanding the application. I appreciate what they're doing. I appreciate the futures market. I appreciate these insured funds and these pools and what they're trying to do for the market. But as a cipher boy and a cypherpunk, I kind of think, isn't this the shit we're all trying to get away from? Aren't we trying to not leave your keys in other people's hands? Isn't the best practice here just to get informed, hire someone to consult with, or someone in the industry that's an expert, purchase the Bitcoins and put them in cold storage yourself? These people aren't looking to have this money traded. And it's not an investment return platform as much as it is an investment access platform. Now, is that access ever going to be necessary? I don't know. It's like the STO stuff. Do people really want to buy parts? Is there enough unaccredited investors that want to own shares of equity or Apple stocks on a token? Is there really ever going to be a demand for that stuff? And I really suspect that it will be less than what people are speculating the need for these things is going to be. In the end, getting rid of the government, the regulations, the federal involvement. This is what Bitcoin is supposed to be about. So personally, I have traditional investments. I have cryptocurrency investments to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have hardware to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do I see any need for this myself? No.
Well, who's making the money? Who's making the money on this?
Hopefully the holders.
ICE is going to make some money on it. You know, Bakkt
Right.
is the one going to be making the money. So, you know, I think that whether or not, you know, it's needed or not, it's here, and they're going to be using this vehicle to make billions of dollars for themselves.
Yes.
And I think that kind of goes all across all of these investment vehicles we have for the institutions. None of us want them. I don't want it. I say none of us. There's probably some people out there that, you know, want it, that are just purely in cryptocurrency for investment. But for us that are kind of for the decentralization movement and believe that this is supposed to take power away from these power structures instead of giving them power, is real disappointing. But at the end of the day, it's irrelevant because they're here. So
the technology. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to note one more thing that BitBoy, you said that the people who are in here just purely for the investment. I think that is an interesting dichotomy, and they definitely do want something like this, because if they want to welcome all the institutional money to flood in, then you need to listen to like SEC's chairman, Jay Clayton, and whatnot. He's like outlining all the different parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem that isn't quite there yet, and saying that what needs to be improved before something like an ETF can launch. Mm-hmm. And so things like Bakkt, these are the ones that are building the infrastructure and the track record for these institutional pieces to fall into place, like the ETF, to eventually become approved.
You're right about the money they're making. Right. And you're right about the money they're making in the meantime. This is the goal of these companies. Are they trying to be the name brand? Are they doing the first to market? Do they want to be the Uber of trusted investments in the crypto space? Probably not. 9 out of 10 times, these guys have an exit strategy ahead of time. They're looking at a 3 to 5 year play here. Is it even going to be something that's a trusted, accredited source in the future, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years? You know, when we look at this traditional type of investing, mostly it's done with insurance companies and mutual funds that have huge amounts of money put aside. So, and they've been around these for 120 plus years, a lot of these companies. So I have a hard time understanding the real application in the long term.
Well, I'm thinking this is going to transfer wealth over to from people who had a large amount of money to people who invested in cryptos early when cryptos first started. So, you know, it's just a wealth change. You have to see, you have to make Bitcoin legitimate, especially like with older people right now. You know, they're putting out IRAs for Bitcoin. If they see this on the New York Stock Exchange, you know, maybe they have an idea. Hey, maybe I should put some Bitcoin, you know, in my IRA or my 401k. So, you know, you have to let the big boys get in to, you know, because the government's just not going to let this happen without them not making any money.
Of course. No, and I completely agree with you. It's a good thing across the board for everybody. It furthers the technology. At some point, all the hard work and the trust and the marketing that goes into this company and these technologies and these new asset investment platforms, that technology is going to be copy and pasted. It's going to be bought. It's going to be licensed. It's going to grow into other more evolved, probably probably flatter, less profitable companies. I think, it's a good thing. Of course, I have to agree with that. You know, awesome. But I do want to play the devil's advocate here. You know, where do I see this? We always talk about these things in institutional money. When's the institutional money coming in? When is the family funds? When are the trusts? When are people going to stop buying bonds and GICs and traditional low risk stuff and start buying into this crypto stuff? And I think the real catalyst that's going to cause the institutional investment is 211, last I checked, of the Fortune 500 companies are currently developing on the Ethereum blockchain. And this is for a lot of the fintech solutions, back-end money transfers, identifications, different database stuff. I think what's going to happen is, as the binary traders, as the decentralized exchanges ultimately all come online that are trusted, true decentralized exchanges, the flash trading, the high frequency trading is going to come into cryptocurrency. It's going to flatten a lot of the daily volatility through just arbitrage and through the different exchanges. It's just flatten out the markets quite a bit. And at this point, when things aren't doing 30% runs up and down in a day, it'll appeal to more of the traditional investing. I think that's probably within the next year or two. And things like proof of stake, the different proof of stake mechanisms that have been put in place to validate cryptocurrency, do security, I think a lot of those at a 2, at a 5, at a 7% interest over a year is going to appeal to a lot of those people. And I think when we truly are going to see the floors rising is something like, it might not be Ethereum's proof of stake, the Casper update, but I think it's going to be some kind of buy and hold for a very long time in one of, say, the top 3 or 4 blockchains. Awesome. This will cause floors rising, and then more institutions will see that their investments are going up. So you'll see a lot of straight green lines all at once. And I think that's the real application, is when it can compete with bonds and things of that really low interest rate stuff.
I want to move to the next topic now, and this one was one that BitBoy brought up, which is the privacy coin delisting one. If you don't mind kicking us off on that topic.
Yeah, sure. So very interesting what we've been seeing with privacy coins over the last few weeks, really about the last 6 weeks. We had Coinbase in the UK delist Zcash. That was basically due to their severing of their relationship with Barclays Bank in the UK, and then their subsequent relationship with Clearbank. And Zcash getting delisted was part of that new deal. Now, what Barclays allowed Coinbase to do was instant withdrawals for their customers. So if you have Barclays Bank, you could get an immediate transfer to your bank from Coinbase. And now with Clearbank, the only way they're going to be able to institute those instant withdrawals is with Zcash being delisted. Along with that, we had OKX came out and delisted Zcash, Monero, and one other privacy coin.
Dash, right?
Mind. Which one? Dash? Yes, it was Dash. You are correct. It was Dash.
Pivx.
What's that? Was Pivx delisted as well?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that. I didn't see that one. So the whole point here being is that, you know, our privacy coins, while they really do line up with the original intention of cryptocurrency and being untraceable, are they a dying coin? Will those end up being only something that is used on the black market because fiat on and off ramps will not allow, really the off ramps will not allow people to, you know, have access to cashing out their privacy coins? And if you think of, if they're going to make it on the black market, I mean, at some point, somebody's got to be able to cash them in somewhere. So if all of the governments of the world like band together and say, you know what, we're just not going to put up with these privacy coins. And if your exchange has on ramps or off ramps involving a privacy coin, we're not going to let anybody deposit there. Like where does this leave the state of privacy coins?
Yeah,
this is the inevitable evolution, is it not, guys? As we all expected the regulators to come into the space, and aside from the tallest nails getting the hammer, the next step is things like tethers, things like Monero, and all these things. They're trying to figure out how they can control, how they can represent, how they can, you know, Monero works when you look at all the FBI and the federal seizing cases when they seize cryptocurrency from companies and people and hackers. And it always says exactly how much Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the other coins that were seized. And generally there's a question mark beside Monero. You can see that they still really don't have the ability to track this stuff. And
yeah,
but this is inevitable. The more and more exchanges are going to continue to delist privacy coins. You're going to see more places like Shapeshifter and stuff exist, tumblers and coin laundering machines, but that's going to have a high rate of fee for that. The solution is the decentralized exchanges need to hit before the regulators hit, and they're already here. So
yeah, but we've already seen CEOs of decentralized exchanges, the CEO of Ether Delta, getting in trouble for not doing KYC and things like that. So I don't even know, you know, how safe the decentralized exchanges are.
Well, think of the Pirate Bay, right? The Pirate Bay eventually, at one point, actually had itself hosted on drones hovering in international waters off the coast of South Korea, so that it met airtime law and maritime law and all these different things. You know, we once floated data servers on a boat on a reservation.
Right.
And it's made it very difficult for the government to do certain things. So there is solutions to these decentralized exchanges, and they are coming. But when you said it yourself, the CEO, there's the problem. It can't have a business or company associated with it. Currently, they're all still trying to make money. You know, and what? Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Or, I mean, yeah, I was just going to say that I think it's sad to see all of these privacy coins get delisted and all of these governments moving against them. Because if you remember, like a lot of the people who invented the internet, that's
Alcor.
Well, one thing that they said is that one of their biggest regrets is that they didn't build in privacy by default into the internet base layer. And so this is kind of sad to see that we're kind of losing these great privacy coins. And one other really quick thing I wanted to note is I kind of dove down the rabbit hole, but did you guys know that Zcash has like the world's best cryptographers working on it?
Yes, Bulletproof, Zshark. We just recently saw a great talk about that by Christy from Core Research over at DEF CON. The ways that they're approaching random number generation and the way that they're approaching privacy is incredibly next level. Absolutely. But those technologies are simply copy and pasted to the next chain, right? So it's not that any one coin is in control or the arbiter of this tech. It's all just tech, and that's what people keep forgetting. We're seeing more and more of these projects revert back to Bitcoin or revert back to other larger networks. They're taking their entire software base. You know, Gab just left Bravo, and there's a lot of this going on, right? So the difficulty is Ethereum is now talking about, and I like Ethereum from a technology play, but they're talking about adopting Zshark into its technology. So you just check a box for privacy. But I'm a Cisco engineer.
But that's not going to be good, though. That's not going to be good, though, because Dash has a checkable box, and that's enough to get them delisted. So
exactly,
that's a good point.
Yeah, Litecoin also, I spoke with a lot of Litecoin people this week, including a member of the Litecoin Foundation when I was at Coinvention. And, you know, the big talk has been like, oh, you know, we need to add Mimblewimble. We need to add this protocol. And I asked him, I said, look, have you guys considered that if you add this protocol, now all of a sudden you're in the crosshairs of the government's talking about wanting to delist you? And he said, yes, that's one thing we're heavily thinking about. So I don't think we're going to see Mimblewimble protocol, you know, included in Bitcoin or Litecoin or almost anything as long as all this heat is being brought on privacy coins. What do you think, Britt?
Well, I'm actually a Zcash miner. I have two Z9 minis running. They're not running now, and I turn them off. But you know, JP Morgan uses Zcash as privacy technology. And well, I think, is it Istanbul?
No, it's Constantinople.
Yeah, Constantinople.
They're talking about automatic swapping with Ethereum coins with Zcash. And you know, this is what I think. Even Bakkt was talking about, well, I wouldn't say Bakkt was talking about that, but there were some rumors that Bakkt was thinking about presenting Zcash as a coin, as a futures coin, something in the future. But if you mess with, if you're friends with the big boys, I think you can get around things. I think if you're having technology that's going to help everybody else, they're just going to make sure that you can be KYC'd when you come in, and then when you go off ramp, you can do whatever you want. Because that's what really matters. If once you come on ramp, they know who you are, and when you go off ramp, they really don't care. That's what I believe.
Make sure we can all agree here, because I do want to get a consensus from all four of you guys. You all completely agree that Monero and every other cryptocurrency, unless you follow the absolute highest level best practices, are all going to be reversible and trackable 15, 20 years from now. All this data is being collected upstream at the internet service providers. They reverse engineered a lot of the Tor users by the amount of pixels on their monitors. Yeah. So if you were
Ivan was talking about that. Ivan was talking about that this morning. You know, like anyone who thinks that all of their transactions are secret are crazy, because they're private right now.
Yes.
But once this encryption is broken, especially, you know, we'll talk about the quantum computing in a little bit, then, I mean, everything will be retroactive. So, you know, you can certainly be charged for crimes if you're doing human trafficking or anything else like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, everybody does agree Monero isn't truly going to ever remain secret forever anyways.
Yeah.
I mean,
permanent.
unless they're able to use some kind of new tech, it's kind of
Ubiquitous
just like
quantum
cat
encryption
and the
or
mouse, cat and the mouse. But I mean, in general, I agree with that statement. Yeah.
Awesome.
It all
Let's
depends on- I believe it all depends on who they catch first with the Monero. Like
Yeah,
if something happened really, really bad and they catch somebody with a lot of Monero, then I think the government will spend time and money to be able to, break down all these encryptions.
Awesome. Let's move on to the next topic. And this one is one by Alex about the US Fed printing a lot of dollars.
a lot of dollars, liquidity for everybody. Now, the headline. I had to speak to several bankers over the last week because I need to get a really good understanding of exactly what's going on. So I like the financial markets, but there's a lot of misconceptions about what is or isn't truly what's going on. So everybody's saying $2 billion has been printed and made available, just like in 2008, just like before the market crashed, just so money for the banks. And that's not really what happened or what's happening, or at least that's not what the feds are happening. So let me explain what happened in 2008 and why it's different than what's happening right now. I'll explain exactly what's going on right now. I'll explain the Fed's perspective, and then I'll explain the conspiracy perspective, or the whispers of maybe that this, because the Feds ultimately wouldn't say that the roof is on fire, even if the roof was on fire. It's because it's their job to keep the markets flat. They have a certain percentage range that they want the markets to be in, the interest, and they tried their best to keep it there. So in 2008, the difficulty was banks weren't lending to each other. There was a dry up in credit. Nobody knew what each other were holding as far as quality assets. So they were unable to say, yeah, I'll give you $20 billion, but they didn't know if that bank was going to go belly up the next day. So they didn't know if their assets, if their treasuries were backed by a bunch of bullshit. So in 2008, everybody was paranoid and nobody was lending each other money. That's what caused the 200 billion to be introduced to day trades. Now, the money that's been made available is actually 75 billion a day, and it's changed a little bit, but for the last 4 days, last week, it was 75 billion a day made available. Now, that money is made available to people with high quality assets. We're talking things like treasuries and bonds and different government-backed investments. And the people who hold these are generally the banks, and the banks hold these to meet the new stringent requirements since 2008 and 2014 in the US. The requirements to hold these high-quality assets has been a lot higher. So, and then again, recently, Trump just introduced a bunch more treasuries to the markets, and he introduced a bunch of tariffs to the market. So what actually happened, or what the Feds suggested happened, and what Bloomberg had been reporting on 2 weeks prior, is that there was going to be a dry up in liquidity in the market. Everyone bought these treasuries that were made available by the Trump government, and then everyone also at the same time had to pay all these tariffs and taxes all at once. So essentially, there's not enough money to be borrowed. Now, if it's truly a liquidity issue, then what the federal, and that's what the feds are claiming, then this is going to solve that problem. By mid-October, everyone will have borrowed the money they need using their treasury assets as collateral. They'll pay that money back at a small interest a day later or 2 days later. That's what is going on, and that's what's gone on for the last 4 days.
Got it.
Now, if that's true, if it's simply just a liquidity issue because of the new tariffs that came on and because of the new treasuries that came to the market, then they're literally, and it's what Bloomberg was saying, there's people just don't have enough cash, and these corporations need that cash. And it's primarily banks, large corporations, and maybe certain individuals like car companies that have a lot of these backed assets, these high quality assets. Now, where it could, so again, let me state this. It's 75 billion a day, not 200. They're making more available. They have just extended the amount of time. So now they said they'd extend it to October 17th, which again has my banker friends concerned. This is a red flag. But it's only a red flag if there's a credit issue, not a liquidity issue. They're going to solve the short-term liquidity stuff. However, if the banks or the feds or these other institutions know that there's a bad player that could go under any day now, then this is what could be happening. And the feds wouldn't acknowledge that. They would try to tame the markets as much as they could. And what they're doing, the markets ran for 4 hours on the first day, but essentially this financial easing has worked, and it will probably work. But if there's a secret that everybody doesn't know about, if one of the big banks are overextended or one of their schemes are coming apart, if there's a sector that's about to take a real big financial hit, if there's these large, but it's really ultimately a credit issue. If one of these large players are not being trusted to borrow money, then this is what could cause real markets crash. And that's where people could see real financial strife. So what do you guys think? What do you guys make of all this right now?
I was going to say this. So to my understanding that when the banks go to the Federal Reserve, all the other banks know of this and say, oh, that's a no-no. You really don't have any money, or something is really wrong because you can't ask us for the money. Correct? Isn't that correct? That's what I've been reading about.
It's all very public, and you can track all of the trades, and you can see what percentages it's at. Right? You're absolutely correct there. But what is the reason that they don't want to lend? Is it that they know something so they don't want to lend money to each other? Or is it that the quantitative easing is what's causing them to not want to loan money to each other? Because from what the feds are suggesting, it's just a liquidity issue because of taxes and tariffs.
I think at the end of the day that what people really care about in this story is, are we going to get a recession?
Yeah.
That's what people care about. Is this leading to a recession? Is this a fail-safe to prevent that from happening, or is it inevitable? And when it comes to crypto, what crypto people want to know is, if we do have a recession, are my bags going to go up or are my bags going to go down? And of course, I've been critical of many people in the cryptocurrency community that hope for a recession. They hope for a world collapse so their Bitcoin can go up or something. Like, to me, that's kind of sick in the head to want a lot of people to fall on hard financial times just so you can have money. But what do you guys do you guys think that a recession is coming? I mean, it seems to be the general sentiment that most people believe. I personally don't believe when it's coming because everybody's thinking it's coming. So,
I have a pretty good perspective from the bankers on this today. After a market crashes, usually everybody gets smart. And after 2008, you didn't see a lot of bad mortgages. You didn't see a lot of bad real estate. All those numbers have been really, really reduced. Bad credit just for the regular consumer. And this happens in China. They're on a 22-year streak. In Germany, they're on a 15-year streak. So people talk about the 7-year cycle and how many years late we are for that. And that's less relevant if you look at it from a zoomed out perspective. So we could see another 4, 5, 6, 7 years of strong markets naturally, based on the sharpening of the industry overall. People not buying bullshit as much. But it comes down to the negative yield, right? You're seeing countries like Germany and Canada have these negative yield curves. And when this happens consistently, several times at a time, when it happens, and then it goes up and then yields to the negative again, and then stays that way, this is the true indicator of recession. And we had that, and we're seeing that again. Not in the US, but in several countries right now, they are at negative interest rates. So there is indicators showing that a recession could be coming.
So one thing I want to touch on is what BitBoy said about other people wanting for a recession because their bags are going to go up. So one of my teammates on my channel actually did some more deeper analysis on that. And based on his research, he actually found out that he doesn't think it will, it's likely that Bitcoin won't go up if there's a recession.
No,
and he also,
money.
yeah, exactly. Like, people don't have money to spend. They need to pay bills and so forth, but also for gold, because gold has been around for a long time. So you can match that up with all the prior recessions in the world. And he's found that gold has dropped down with the markets when there have been crashes or recessions or corrections, whatever, and gone back up afterwards, even if it's like performing strong since then.
Well, if there's a world recession, that means the technological development in this space goes to zero. That means people aren't able to pay their internet bills. How the fuck are they going to operate on blockchain? Like just the really basic stuff. If all these new tech companies and artificial intelligence companies and all these financial companies go under because there's no money being moved around, well, then we lose years of technological advancement. We lose billions of dollars of research and development all going into this space.
Right.
So would a market collapse help Bitcoin? Hell no. Could certain financial markets crashing cause Bitcoin to go up? Are we going to see countries go back against cryptocurrencies or go back against the gold? I think that we'll see that in the next 5 to 10 years. But would a market collapse help? No. This is still a brand new bleeding edge technology, and we're all early adopters still. And it could kill the technology altogether. There just might not be a need.
Okay, I want to move on to the next topic, and this one was one that I wanted to chat about Libra, and how I was pretty shocked when France and Germany came out and said that they were pretty much going to block it for now. And yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. Meanwhile, traditional fintech companies trying to do semi-similar things as Libra were probably cheering about that. And I have mixed feelings. Like, of course, I don't like Libra and what they stand for, but yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about this whole announcement and how it affects the crypto space? Because some people said that Libra could help more mass adoption, getting people comfortable with the concept of crypto and so forth.
Libra will never launch.
You don't think so?
I disagree.
So I believe Libra, if it does launch, it will not launch in the current form that it is in. And if it does launch, it will not launch in America. America is going to stop this from happening. The government, if they think Bitcoin is a threat, which they've already said they believe Bitcoin is a threat, Libra is much more of a threat to any government, because Facebook has more users than any other country in the world by far. It's not even close. There's like 3 billion users of Facebook. So when you're opening up an economy and you're saying that, you know, this could be competing to be, you know, kind of a currency of a pseudo country, really, I mean, is what it would be equivalent to, then these governments are not going to allow it. And if they do, it is going to be more regulated than we've ever seen anything. And I frankly, we already have France, Germany, and the United States saying they're going to do everything they can to block it. The United States government is already pushing forward legislation trying to prevent any tech company from getting into the currency space. So that's my personal opinion on it. I think that these countries are coming out for a reason. I think they've already discussed this. I think they're banded together. And unless this thing launches in Switzerland, then I do not have a lot of hopes for it to launch.
One thing really quick I want to note is that the funny thing you say that, I think you may be totally right about it not launching in its current form. I actually have a friend in the venture capital space, and she says she for sure thinks that Libra will launch because of all the lobby power and all the corporations that have joined in the coalition together. Yeah.
Let's not forget what Facebook's primary investment income is. How does Facebook make its money, guys?
Ads.
KYC. KYC. It has nothing to do with ads. They sell ads, but the reason they get the most money for the ads is because they have all the customer information. They know who you are, what you're looking up. They know 3 months before you're going to leave your wife. They know if you're cheating on your girlfriend. They know you're pregnant before you know you're pregnant based on the things you're buying on Amazon. They know all sorts of crazy shit, but they make their money because of data. Okay? So let me pull my crystal ball out here, guys. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly how this is all going to play out. And in a year or two from now, we're all going to thank me because you're all going to listen and get into this space, okay? So Libra has last I checked, it was $54 billion or $57 billion of liquidity, okay? They had that money invested sitting there ready to go. They're not going to be allowed to release a cryptocurrency because the governments of the world will ban against them and regulators will give them all high hell. That's a 15-year lobbying process. So what are they going to do with all of this money sitting there that people want to spend on the space? They're going to buy every fucking thing that has customer data and put it as part of the Libra Foundation. They're going to buy every website, every exchange, every news outlet. But why? because they don't give a shit about they just want the information. They want the customer information. So the smartest thing anyone in this space could be doing right now is they can have a patent, they can have financial assets as far as like large investments in certain groups, stocks, I mean, like owning percentages of companies, or generally just having platforms or media outreach, different things of this nature. If you have assets in the space that has a consumer base at all, has customer information, they're just it's gonna be the .com bubble all over again. I keep telling Kevin how lucky he is because 3 or 4 of his websites are basically going to get bought from him for $10 million a piece. And they might not even be completely finished. But if they've got 5,000 active users and they're users that are related to the space and you've made them log in with their Facebook or whatever else, all that information is there. So I think Libra is just going to buy everything and they're going to own everything. And are we going to want anything to do with the space after that? Are we all going to retreat to Bitcoin specifically or something? Maybe. But the real winners are those who are holding assets that are going to get bought and those people that are going to build on and off ramps from Liberty. Those are going to be the real winners. It is inevitable. Nothing's going to stop it.
Like Kevin said, oh, let me put this on. Sorry. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Like Kevin said, I believe, yeah, they're going to have too much lobbying power. We're seeing more and more candidates come up to the presidential race talking about cryptocurrencies. It's the big news. It's all in our government now. We see it on TV. We see it on CNBC all the time. But I think this is what Facebook, this is what they need to do. Instead of going somewhere else and putting a whole bunch of treasuries together in another country, they should just buy a large amount of their stock back and digitalize it and sell it off on an exchange and make it a staking token, and have people be able to use their token to buy stuff on their platform or to get whatever they want. I think that's the easiest way they should do it, but
well, I mean, that's the end game for Libra. The end game is, people are talking about like, oh, Facebook wants their own coin, so they can make all kinds of money on their coin and pump the coin, inflate the price. That's not what it's about. It's about having an easy way for you to go on Facebook and to buy a new set of headphones while you're scrolling through your newsfeed. That's what this is about, because that will make the advertising, because right now the Facebook advertising, while the prices have increased tremendously over the last few years, the fact is it's still so much cheaper than Google AdWords. Google AdWords is like so ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous to advertise on there. Facebook is still affordable. Once this happens, Facebook will be the top dog in advertising. We'll crush Google. We'll crush everything. So that's the end game. If it takes them 15 years to do it, then I'm sure they'll try to do it. But at the end of the day, I think the governments are genuinely shaking in their boots at this thing. And I think this is, if it ever does get approved, like I said, I don't think it'll be in the current form, and it will not be anytime soon.
Well, they're absolutely paying employees, right? So if you're, one of the things that all these companies are going to need a lot of people here for in the near future is what I'm going to call artificial intelligence busy work, where you basically look at pictures of cats and you say, yes, that's a cat. No, that's not a cat. Because, well, no, and it's already going on, but they're just going to need human users to validate what the artificial intelligence is spitting out. And so how are you going to, that's low specialization, low income work. And how are they going to pay? If they can pay those people in Facebook credits, they're going to dominate that artificial intelligence validation market.
It's called deep learning. It's called deep learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Networks.
Yeah, and the deep learning it certainly is part of it, right? But a lot of that's harder to black box. The deep learning, you have to build these massive tables to try and reverse engineer it. It doesn't really, the artificial intelligence can give you, you can validate what it's doing more or less, right?
One thing I want to note about Libra is, I don't know what form it will eventually come out in, but I don't think I would ever buy Libra tokens, but if anyone ever sent it to me, then I would be down to use it on my Uber rides or on Spotify or whatever other company that they're partnered with. I think that's one big thing. Like, someone sends me Bitcoin or Ether, I can't really use it on Uber or some other random app I use day to day that easily. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but
not
Facebook,
yet. I mean, there isn't
it,
yet. I mean, hopefully in the future we'll
Yeah, but
hopefully in the future we'll see a decentralized Uber, you know, because it was funny that Alex said something about, you know, Uber making money. I mean, Uber hasn't made any money since it's been around.
No, that's what I said. They're what you call a loss leader in the space. And
they are a leader in the space, but the company itself, I mean, is
that the intention of these companies getting in while the regulation is so bad? You know, the rules today are going to be so different than the rules next year and the rules 5 years and 20 years from now.
Crazy.
So any company trying to deal with the traditional market right now, these crypto companies, they're in for hell. And if you think that any of them don't have an exit strategy for the next year and 5 years, you're kidding yourself. You're kidding. They all have exits because they have to.
Can I say something about Uber? Uber's not.
No, you can't.
Let me say something. They just released their artificial intelligence. It's called, I think, Lugwit. They just released that for free. That's what they're working on. They're working with cars not using people. You know, you call an Uber, a car just come pick you up. They don't want to have to deal with people. And that's the main reason why they're not making any profits. They're talking about artificial intelligence with their cars. That's all they want.
One day we'll be able to let Uber borrow our car while we're at work. Well, I don't have a real job, but
Elon just offered that as well. He said everyone with the Tesla is going to be able to rent it out. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next topic, which is BitBoy's topic about Google quantum computing. If you don't mind kicking us off on that one.
Yeah, sure. So obviously we had the paper that was released this weekend on accident, the leak by, this is such a crazy story. The leak by NASA of the Google paper. And Google said they pulled it because, you know, it wasn't peer reviewed is what they said. And that's why they pulled it. It's not official yet. And if you look at kind of some of the things that they're claiming in there to be able to break SHA-256 encryption and things like that, with a quantum computer that only has 56 qubits is what it's called. There's other papers that have been written that show that like you really need one about 1,500 qubits to actually break the encryption. So we could be much further off away from breaking it than Google says. But at the end of the day, this encryption will be broken. All encryption in the history of time, since the first encryption was created in 500 BC, has been broken. So for the people to sit here and think that quantum computing is not going to break our current encryption is really asinine. Just like we were talking about earlier with privacy coins, like it's asinine to think that one day those privacy protocols will not be cracked, because they will. So, you know, the question is, how long away do you guys think we are? And what do you think we can do about it now to prevent the, all of our security being in jeopardy in the future?
I have a question for, I guess, the Bitcoiners who are among us or listening. If they, in fact, have to change, like if it's an existential crisis and they have to change encryption algorithms, would that break backwards compatibility, which is like a huge no-no for the Bitcoin space, right?
Yeah, I think
there's always going to be layer 2 solutions, right? All this stuff. I'm a Cisco engineer originally, and I'm an internet guy. And you have to appreciate that all of these issues you're speaking to will be easily resolved in a separate layer. And when the technology that helps your phone, SMS messaging, fax machine protocols, these are all just things that come together that make a really good user experience, right? And so that will go on with the cryptocurrency market as well. Will we see new technologies evolve past the current technologies? Certainly. Will we see some of these technologies remain for a very long time because they're built on and other tech? Yes. Is the internet flawed as it is? Sure, absolutely. Is there attack protocols on Bitcoin that exist? Absolutely, right? So ultimately, they're going to have to fork to quantum encryption at some point. The entire world will have to do this.
But the question is, can the Bitcoin community that's so large come to consensus on what they want to build to be able to get around it? Because something like Decred, for instance, has a time mechanism built in to where they can actually put this change up to a community vote. And if they need to change their encryption, they could change it in about an hour if it were to be broken. Bitcoin, it's a much longer and much more complicated process. So yes, I do believe it's going to happen, but here's the thing. Will this lead to kind of another Bitcoin Cash saga where you got some people, or like if you look at Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, where some people are like, you know what, this is the direction we need to go. And some other people are like, no, actually this direction is better. And then you end up splitting the Bitcoin community again. That's already, wouldn't say pretty splintered. I mean, the majority of Bitcoin people are, Bitcoin core people. I just call it regular Bitcoin. But, it could definitely lead to some governance issues in the future.
Agreed.
I was going to say I think IBM came out with a quantum computer just recently.
Yes.
That's for sale commercially. But I think it's like $1 million or something like that. Isn't it like really, really expensive?
Well, the price is not even the most ridiculous thing.
Operating costs.
So the only people that's going to be able to buy this is probably the super richer governments.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's really interesting about that, from my understanding, so Google a couple of years ago invested heavily in the top 7 and wider 11 companies all involved with the quantum computers. Companies like D-Wave up here in Burnaby, Vancouver, Burnaby, Canada. Now the current largest machine, the one from the paper, from my understanding, was a 76 qubit machine.
I think it's 54 or 56. I just read.
Yeah, so the largest one that is currently working and being used is 76 qubits. And from my understanding, we just went to a few really good conferences about this. It's suggesting about 4,000 qubits is what will be needed to likely break SHA-256. But the Google paper, which they called Quantum Supremacy, sorry, suggesting that they are now the supreme leaders. They are
companies are offended by this. Companies are offended that Google has said this. It's very funny.
The reason it came down is probably because of all the lawyers calling them and saying all this antitrust and things, saying you can't say that you're supreme here, guys. But the encryption stuff is just the small tip of this iceberg. If they've really got working quantum computers, the breaking encryption is almost going to be irrelevant to them.
Crypto is just a small, tiny speck of the tech community.
What you're going to see is massive improvements in all sectors of society, technology, humanity. These things are just going to be like, do this, and this way better. And it's not that they're going to become this warring ultimate superior company. They might just be able to charge whatever they want, and they might become the ultimate consultant.
Well, that's what's going on, because they actually, along with Cloudflare, a few years ago, invested into figuring out post-quantum solutions. And so basically what they've done here is they have created a problem for people by breaking this, or by saying they can break this encryption. So now who do you have to go to pay for your security? You got to go to Google. And another conspiracy kind of on the same term. Do you guys think it's a coincidence that this paper was leaked the same weekend we have Bakkt launching? I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Like, one day you got a company saying, oh, you know what? Crypto is going to be dead because we're going to destroy it with our quantum computing supremacy. And then the next day or 2 days later, you have the largest institutional vehicle known to man, the most anticipated known to man. For the last year, people have been dying for this thing launching the same weekend. I don't know. Put on your tinfoil hat. Maybe that's going to help drive the price down.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be extremely hard physically, because these machines take up tons of space. Don't you have to have like a cooling room for this?
Yeah. So the operating cost generally
for that to stay stable
has to be colder than interstellar space.
Yeah, absolute zero is ultimately
it's going to take way longer than we expect. I don't think we're there yet.
Hey,
if we don't even know, we can't really figure out fusion. I think. Let me just stop.
Yeah, and let me put the real tinfoil hat on here. Okay, I don't want to go too deep, but I don't know if you guys have heard of the Mandela effect.
Yeah,
and some of the things of culture that have maybe been differing and altering, kind of based on my research. You know, there's a lot of different people are noticing maybe fluidity in the way that the markets and company names and movies and different things have been. History is a little more fluid than people realized. But it's not happening in like Bollywood. It's not happening in like Chinese film. It's generally located to these 3 areas, which tend to be the religious belt of the U.S., Texas, and these areas, where these quantum computers are being heavily researched and worked on, and in California and in Vancouver here, where these computers are actually being used. And so we might actually find out the whole purpose of quantum computers is to isolate it from outside noise. And outside noise is just wave functions. It's just reality, right? Reality is just noise. Matter and objects and sound, it's all just static noise to them. So what they're trying to do by reducing these things to as close to absolute zero as possible, which costs a ton to operate.
It's insane. Yeah.
That's where the real cost is. But they've got a portable unit now that ships with 56 qubits, and they've got the 76 qubit machine running. So maybe the fluidity of reality, maybe quantum mechanics, and maybe the things that we're just starting to understand in physics are also being affected buy this type of computing.
Oh,
It might
I'm
get
in the
to,
matrix right now.
no, it might get to a point where
Change your background. You're in the matrix.
let's not kid ourselves. If it ever gets too advanced, if Google ever gets too sophisticated with this technology, then the black helicopters show up. Am I right? Like eventually, if it gets to the point where they're really taking over, they
People
just come in with a helicopter.
People don't understand what quantum computing is. When you really dig into it, it's insane what we're doing, making zeros and ones exist together at the same time.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
Well, all right, that's definitely a really fun topic. I want to move on to the next one, though, by Brit, which is more about the CME and what they're doing lately.
So the CME is talking about they're trying to come out with options. I think overall, you know, when you have futures, you have a steady contract. You know, it's from this date to this date. Now they're coming out with options. They're giving people a little more flexibility. And I think they're just starting to open up the market to bigger players who want, you know, a little more flexibility. So what you guys think about that?
Is there a large need and want still?
Well, since the CBOE went down, you know, I think they have a lot of players. I think what I really think right now, a lot of people, institutional investors, really don't want to hold Bitcoin. If they want to bet on it, they want to bet on it with cash because they know that their investment is going to go here and I'm going to get it back to here. So that's what, you know, as we're seeing Bakkt come up, it's maybe making this a little bit shaky, but we'll see what the volume is when they come out.
Well, what we're going to see is we're going to see, kind of like I was speaking about earlier, these investment vehicles, these funds, these avenues for institutional investors to come in, they're going to have to constantly outdo each other to make them the newest and brightest, you know, billboard out there so people come to them. So all of a sudden we launch Bakkt. Of course, we got to talk about the next thing. Now we're talking about options. We've been talking about options for a few weeks now, and I'm sure it will happen. And it probably won't be good, just like Bakkt hasn't been good initially. When, of course, it's still really too new, early to tell what exactly is going to happen. But we're going to just keep seeing these new things come out, more derivative investment options for people. Whether, you know, next, who knows now, it could be, you know, real estate becoming tokenized and things like that in order for people to invest in like a fraction of an acre instead of a whole acre and things like that. So ultimately we're going to see more of these happen. And, you know, I don't think it's necessarily kind of what Alex is saying. I like that. Is saying like, what's the need? I don't think there is a need for these things really. The fact is though, is that these companies are going to keep coming up with new ways to make money. And that's what this is. They're basically official investment shillers. That's what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's look at it this way. I want to give my brother's perspective on this as the traditional banker. The four of us sitting here, I imagine we're all healthy investors. We don't carry a lot of debt or any debt unless it's for a purpose. And I imagine that we don't invest more money in cryptocurrency than we can afford to lose.
Wrong.
No, I certainly.
I'm on a yacht or homeless. That's my only option.
Okay. Oh Christ. Okay. Well, oh God. Well, please.
I'm kidding, kind of. But
yeah. Well, give me a call. We can convince you to sell all your bikes and shit and start there, and we'll get to zero out the debt. That's healthy, and that's always encourage healthy investing. We don't want to give people the idea that any of this is a sure bet. But the four of us sitting here, with the amount of money and the way we're involved in the industry, we're probably pretty confident that Bitcoin's value is going back up, right? Yeah. Oh, we can say that?
Definitely.
Okay. Well, the traditional money guys aren't. They don't know if it's secure. They're not convinced that it's a technology that's going to be adopted. They look at it maybe like the green energy space. Like, was it a good technology to get in? Yeah, because there was government write-offs but is anybody really making money in solar in the way they suspected? Not really. No. Is it really the thing that people want it to be? Probably not. So when I ask him, I say, well, why aren't you invested in crypto? What's your reluctance? Well, they don't know if it's secure. They're not learned about the space, so there's a lot of concerns about them being hacked, right? And this can't be insured the traditional ways. They're not sure about Bakkt and the CME and all these different things. They're just not confident. They also try to invest in what they understand. This is all bleeding edge technology. Nobody understands it, right? It's not even going to be the same in a year and a half from now. We keep talking about all these coins forking and all these quantum encryptions. Like, none of this is going to look the way it looks now in 10 years. So the problem is there's no experts, so there's no confidence. right? There's no confidence in security, and there's no confidence in understanding. So what he said to me is, if I want to go wide, if I want to go long, I can bet on the fucking weather with JP Morgan. Like, I can invest in if it's going to rain tomorrow or not. There's a million ways to go long and wide, to be high risk, that these guys understand the mechanisms of already, right?
I think that's interesting because I was also talking in one of my other communities on Telegram, and people were asking like what we think all these new institutional instruments, how they're going to move the market. And I was just like, I don't think it's going to make us go on a bull run or anything. If anything, it's just going to be like more sideways or go down, like the CME futures launch or CBO. Yeah, I forgot which one was around the tip of the last bull market.
The CBOE ones were on December 10th and the CME were on December 17th, 2000.
Okay, the CME one then. Yeah, I was like, I don't think this is going to kick off a bull market, and so far it seems to be right. Like the market is indifferent to all of these instruments launching.
Well, a lot of people think they're kind of already, baked into the price and things like that.
Okay.
But I think that it boils down to, it's very interesting when Alex, you're talking about your brother's opinion on this, and he can bet on anything. And I think that's the fundamental difference between the institutional or the accredited investor and those of us that are in this space. Is that we believe in the idea of cryptocurrency.
Right.
We believe in the idea of Bitcoin, the idea of decentralization, and that's what makes it special to us. And that's what gives us the confidence to know that the price is going to go up, because we understand the scarcity, the value of it. And also we believe that ultimately that if we don't have something like this to kind of decentralize the larger payment structures, that we're going to be living in whatever a dystopian future.
Orwellian hell, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Anyways, guys, there was supposed to be one more topic, but I think we can just stop it right here. Let's just really quickly go down the line and maybe tell people a little bit about your channel and where they can find you. So let's start with Alex, and then Brit, and then BitBoy, and then I'll wrap it up.
I'm Alex from the Crypto Kings. We're a company based here in Vancouver. We started by selling over $1.2 million in GPU miners in our first year of operations. So that was pretty exciting. We manage farms at scale. We do a lot of security talks. We put a lot of free information out there. Not your keys, not your coins. Get a good hardware wallet. Follow those best practices. This is what we care about. So it's Good Guy Biker, Motorcycles Vancouver on YouTube, Spilly Guy on Twitter, and Good_Guy_Biker on Instagram. And
awesome.
And here it is. One more time, crystal ball. Proof of stake launches for Ethereum. Institutions move in. Straight green lines going up. That's when we're going to see the family funds and the traditional accredited investors get in.
Awesome. Thank you. Brit?
All right, guys. I'm BritVR. I'm Britain. I'm in Chicago. I'm a geologist, so I'm just a nerdy guy, just real science nerdy guy. I have a cryptocurrency channel that's been running for a very, very long time. I do have a website, BritVR Crypto, where you can learn how to make passive income on crypto. Check it out when you guys can. And something I am trying to build right now with a couple of machine learning developers. I'm trying to make a deep learning trading bot. It's just going to be for fun, so I can see how it works. I want to use long-term, short-term memory and recurring RNN neural networks. So that's my goal right now, and maybe Q learning in the future. So that's the stuff I'm into, and
awesome.
Hope you guys visit my channel.
Awesome. BitBoy?
Hey, so my channel is BitBoy Crypto. You can find me there. I've been investing in Bitcoin since 2012. In 2017, I got a lot more involved in the space and started the channel in 2018. I specialize in crypto news. Also have a website, bitboycrypto.com, that you guys can check out, where I write news articles on. And also you can find my podcast, Beards and Bitcoins. Lately, my focus has been on adoption. So I've been going out, hitting the streets here in Atlanta and in some other cities as well. We're going to be going on a tour around the country, doing street content, asking people what they know about Bitcoin, trying to educate people on Bitcoin, and just trying to push this space forward in general.
Awesome. Thank you. And finally, our channel is Bitcoin for Beginners, and we're all about beginner content, breaking down news events, breaking down tech stuff, and just whatever other topics you guys want to listen to. You can follow along. I'll leave a link down below for all of our channels. Also, my website's bitcoinforbeginners.io. And be sure to subscribe to these other guys. I hope you enjoy this one. We'll try to do more of these in the future. And thank you all for watching.